This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. On December 30, 2025, we published a Standing Watch program titled Trump's Destruction of the World Order in 2026. In the program, I mentioned what we can expect of Trump for 2026, and I referred especially to Venezuela. Just a few days later, on Saturday, the biblical Sabbath, January 3, Trump invaded the country. But this is just the beginning. First, let me talk a little bit about what Trump said he did do, why he did do it, and what he is contemplating of doing when it comes to Venezuela. The New York Post wrote on January 3, President Trump told the nation Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were captured in the dead of the night, and that the U.S. would now take over running the South American country. Now, Deutsche Welle reported on January 4 that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio appeared to cast the operation as one of law enforcement, rather than a war declaration, because after all, there was no war declaration given or no support for that by Congress. He said, at its core, this was an arrest of two indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, if that's all there is to it, why is Trump still in Venezuela? Of course, Trump disputed that completely. Newsmax added on January 4 that President Donald Trump insisted Sunday the United States is in charge of Venezuela. Trump said elections in Venezuela would have to wait. And then on January 5, Politico reported, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller says the United States is in charge of Venezuela. We have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission, he said. Very clearly put. In fact, we are told that Trump had already contemplated invading Venezuela during his first term, but he was dissuaded by his advisors at the time, who said, well, that's going to be devastating for America if you do. Now this time he did do it. He apparently listened to the advisors he has now, and it's going to be devastating for the United States as it was prognosticated. Now the reactions to his action were telling. I'm not just talking about the reactions from Russia, from China, North Korea, Iran, and other countries like that. I want to talk about Europe. The New York Post wrote on January 3, the most interesting criticism of Mr. Trump came from Jordan Bardella, the likely presidential candidate of France's far-right National Rally Party, which has received support from Mr. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. The forcible overthrow of a government from the outside cannot constitute an acceptable response, he said. In the face of such intervention, he added, France must rearm our nation to strengthen our industrial and military capabilities in order to make its independent voice heard on the international stage, one that respects sovereignties. Now, there were other comments like those we just heard. Roderick Kiesewetter, the prominent MP from Germany's Conservative Christian Democratic Union, said, with President Trump, the U.S. are abandoning the rules-based order that has shaped us since 1945. The coup in Venezuela marks a return to a mindset of thinking in terms of spheres of influence, where the law of force rules, not international law. Trump is destroying what was left of any trust in the United States. Now that's a voice coming from Chancellor Merz's party. And then Italian opposition party leader and former Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said, "We are facing a blatant violation of international law. No one can feel safe anymore." I also like to read to you a comment which was published in T-Online, another German publication, on January 5. This development presents other states, particularly the Europeans, with a crucial challenge. They must jointly develop their own economic and military strength in order to defend themselves. Otherwise, they will be left with nothing but moralizing commentary which amounts to surrender. And the big challenge is coming soon, having to do with Greenland, because let's talk about what Trump is planning of doing next. January 3 was the date when Focus, another German magazine, published the following comments from US expert Joseph Barami. And he said, "America has become a threat to world peace and incidentally also to Europe if you consider Greenland." CBS News wrote on January 4, "Denmark on Sunday made its displeasure known after the wife of Stephen Miller posted a social media picture of Greenland painted in the colors of the United States flag. Katie Miller put the contentiously altered image of the Danish territory on her X feed late Saturday, hours after the US military operation against Venezuela. Her post had a single word above it: soon." Daily Mail added on January 5. "Stephen Miller stunned US allies and rattled NATO on Monday after flatly declaring that Greenland should be part of the United States and insisting that no country would dare fight Washington over the Arctic territory's future. Instead, he challenged Denmark's sovereignty over the island. What is the basis of their territorial claim, he asked. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? Now, if that isn't clear, what the Trump administration is going to do, I don't know what could be clearer. T-Online reported on January 5, Trump wants Greenland and is putting Denmark and the inhabitants of the island on high alert. For the Greenlanders, one thing is clear: we have to prepare for the worst. For Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen, there is no doubt that Trump is serious, and let me also say that Rubio said, take Trump by his word. When he says something, he's going to do it. Article goes on to say, if the US attacks another NATO country, then everything stops, Frederiksen said, because Trump had not ruled out the use of military force in Greenland in the past. And so Deutsche Welle wrote on January 5, Trump has framed his interest as a matter of national security, claiming Greenland is surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. That assertion is false. Greenland does, however, possess vast untapped natural resources, including oil and critical minerals, a similarity it shares with Venezuela. And everybody knows, or should know, that Trump didn't go into Venezuela just for the purpose of arresting those two people. European leaders could make clear what is at stake, Deutsche Welle continues. The collapse of NATO, the closure of US bases in Europe, potential sanctions on US companies operating in the EU. The case of Venezuela underscores just how unpredictable the US president can be. As 2026 gets underway, European leaders are bracing for a difficult year, and that puts it mildly. The Telegraph wrote on January 5, If he cannot defend Greenland, Europe is truly finished. And Bild Online wrote, the occupation of Greenland through the US is likely. And then in a joint declaration, 7 European countries rejected Trump's claim, including France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Great Britain, and Denmark. Of course, the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, is very careful in what he is saying. He doesn't want to offend Trump. At the same time, he cannot totally isolate himself from all the other European countries condemning Trump. And so he is walking a tightrope. Now, on January 4, Bild Online published a list of countries and areas which have been threatened by Trump, and those countries are in grave danger of being invaded by Trump. And those countries include Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, of course Greenland, and Iran. This is what Bild came up with, but I would like to add Canada and Panama and Europe. And I'm not just talking about Greenland, because Europe has also already been declared by Trump as a security risk for the United States. So the question is this: is Trump going to engage in further military actions against other countries beyond Venezuela? The answer is very, very likely, and I'm talking about 2026. I mean, we have just seen the beginning of 2026. I wonder how 26 will look like when it's reaching its end. Thank you very much for listening. This is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.